Welcome to another installment of Donning the Armor. This morning we will begin in 2 Samuel chapter 3, verse 1. Now there was a long war between the house of Saul and the house of David, but David grew stronger and stronger, and the house of Saul grew weaker and weaker. So as this war is continuing on, we saw the first flourish between Joab and Abner in the last installment, the needless bloodshed that happened at Gibeon. It didn't need to happen. But as this war has continued, as Ishbosheth has refused to relinquish his attempt to hold on to his father's throne against David, the anointed of the Lord, the battle continues, the war continues to go the way of David, because he is truly the Lord's anointed. Ishbosheth never was. Sons were born to David in Hebron. His firstborn was Amnon by Ananoim the Jezreelitess. His second, Chileab, by Abigail, the widow of Nabal the Carmelite. The third, Absalom, the son of Micah, or Maacah, the daughter of Talmi, king of Geshur. The fourth, Adonijah, the son of Haggith. The fifth, Shephatiah, the son of Abital, and the sixth, Ephraim, by David's wife Eglah. These were born to David in Hebron. Outside of my mispronouncing almost every Hebrew name ever made and imaginable, there's a lot of talk in Christian circles. Well, Christian circles being social media, and the people talking about it are not really biblically knowledgeable. But anyway, that there's a big movement now that polygamy is not condemned in the Bible. God's perfectly fine with polygamy. And it probably has to do because our culture is now becoming very, very accepting and affirming of polyamorous people and polygamy and thruples and all this other nonsense that people degrade themselves into and pull themselves apart and torture themselves with in an attempt to be seen as good and moral and enlightened is what it normally comes down to. They believe it's the enlightened position to have because, after all, what is truth? Is there really an objective truth? Is there really anything more to life than being a meat sack? Is there, of neurons, is there really anything more important than just pleasure? As if you're just some animal on the Serengeti and you do whatever's pleasurable to you as you try to survive another trip around the sun until you eventually waste away in death. After all, that's all we are sacks of animated meat. We have no free will. We don't even make decisions. There are a lot of very enlightened secularists who believe that and humanists who believe that we've never made a decision. That's just neurons and synapses firing, and we don't even really exist. We just convince ourselves we exist. Then philosophically, of course, you'd have to ask yourself, what is the me that needs to be convinced that I exist? At some point, there's a consciousness in there that makes decisions and figures things out, which seems to be a soul inside of you that makes those things happen. But for the Bible never speaks out against polygamy outside of kings not supposed to multiply their wives. No, God just gives us negative lessons time and time again, these object lessons of polygamy's bad. I created you man and woman to be one flesh for all eternity when you're joined together. Because look at all these this horrible stuff that happens with everyone who doesn't follow my prescription for what marriage is and for how people are to be joined together. As we'll go into Kings and 2 Kings, and even into as we move on through 2 Samuel, or not 2 Kings, as we go through 2 Samuel and 1 Kings, a lot of these names will continue to come up. Adonijah is one of my favorite because it's something that Roman Catholics point to as to why Mary is the Queen Mother for whom all prayer needs to go through so that it can then be funneled through her to God, because that's what happened with Bathsheba and Solomon on behalf of Adonijah, who came to intercede, who came in and sought Bathsheba to intercede for him to Solomon. Very interesting. Goes to show when people try to look up their topography to give reasons for their church traditions, you really need to finish out the chapter and not just stop at a certain verse. But as we go through 2 Samuel, Amnon, Absalom, these are very important names that will come up. And you will once again see why polygamy is bad, why God does not give just a blank check for it happening, and that it's not that it's openly condemned, it's that it is shown through example after example after example to not work. Period. And all of these children by all these women, we will see in David's life why it does not work. Now it was so, while there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, that Abner was strengthening his hold on the house of Saul. So during the course of this long war, Abner is actually consolidating power himself. Said Ishbosheth really seems as though he's almost a puppet king. And we're going to see what happens when you install a puppet king, and the puppet king seems to think they actually have power in this chapter. So Abner's consolidating power in the house of Saul. He's the one people are starting to look through. He's the one they're starting to look to. He is the one that's becoming powerful. He's the one starting to take leadership. He's the one in charge of the war. Now, Saul had a concubine whose name was Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah. So Ishbosheth said to Abner, "Why have you gone into my father's concubine?" Then Abner became very angry at the words of Ishbosheth and said, "Am I a dog's head that belongs to Judah? Today I show loyalty to the house of Saul your father, to your brothers and to your friends and to his friends, and have not delivered you into the hand of David, and you charge me today with a fault concerning this woman? This is why you don't. This is why sometimes you don't think you're too big for where you're at." Because now Ishbosheth, seeing that Abner's starting to gather all of this power, essentially accuses him of having an affair with one of his father's concubines, either assaulting her or just having a consensual affair with one of his father's concubines. "Why have you been going into that woman? Why are you now sleeping with my father's former concubine?" So Abner, incredibly angry at the words, either because he was doing it, and he doesn't think Ishbosheth should be pointing it out, bringing it up, or it's any of his business because he's the one in power, or he's just scandalized by the fact that he would even be accused of it after he has shown such loyalty to Ishbosheth. So he said, "Am I a dog's head that belongs to Judah? Like, am I this filthy dog?" You know, in the New Testament, dog is, well, all throughout the Bible, dog is often used as Gentile. So are they like the uncircumcised? Am I like these dirty people from Judah? Although they're not Gentiles, but this filthy people? Am I like that filth? Like today, I've shown loyalty to your father's house, to his brothers, to his friends, everybody. I could just turn you over to David, but I didn't. And now you're going to charge me with some crime against your father's concubine? Like, are you out of your mind right now? That's Abner's reaction. Who do you think you are to charge me with any misgiving over some concubine, some woman? Which doesn't seem as much of a denial as much as it is him just saying, why on earth would you even bring this up? May God do so to Abner and more also, if I do not do for David as the Lord has sworn to him, to transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul and set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judah, from Dan to Beersheba. And he could not answer Abner another word because he feared him. So Abner's going, no, I could have turned you over to David at any point, but I was sworn to your father to be his mighty man, to be his general. I could have turned against you at any moment. But you know what? You want to make these accusations against me? You want to call out my misgivings? You know what? That's fine. I'm going to now do the work of the Lord. I'm going to turn you over to David. The Lord is sworn to make David king. He's the new anointed of God. You know, I'm going to work to actually have David installed in your throne. And Ishbosheth is so terrified he can't even say another word to him. He's not a warrior. He's not a mighty man like Abner. Ishbosheth has no recourse against Abner with these words. And Abner is the powerful one. He's the general. At this point, could Ishbosheth even command the army to go after Abner? Could he even attempt to make a call to his military and say, you know what? He needs to be taken out. Would any of them listen to him? With the way he fears them, probably not. Then Abner sent messengers on his behalf to David saying, whose is the land? And saying also, make your covenant with me, and indeed my hand shall be with you to bring all Israel to you. So Abner told Ishbosheth exactly what he was going to do. Ishbosheth had nothing he could do in response to it. And Abner, it wasn't an empty threat. He made an oath before God that he would now help bring David to the throne. And David said, good, I will make a covenant with you, but one thing I require of you. You shall not see my face until you first bring Michal, Saul's daughter, when you come to see my face. So David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, Saul's son, saying, give me my wife Michal, whom I betrothed to myself for 100 foreskins of the Philistines. So this is his condition. All right, you want to make a covenant with me, Abner? I want my wife back. When I fled, Saul gave her to another man. I want her back, and I want her back now. Or you're not going to see. You're not going to see me. The covenant will not be done. There's a condition. A lot of covenants have conditions. A lot of contracts have conditions. And this is David's. That unless you do this thing that's required, you're never going to have your covenant. The war will continue. We will win because we are already winning. And Abner will probably sacrifice his life in the war. He will probably have to go down with the ship, so to speak. Because remember, not only was David married, he actually paid the dowry for her. The dowry was paid. Saul said what he wanted, and he got it. The contract was set. That was to be his wife. And Saul has sought to tear their marriage apart because of fear of losing his kingdom. And Ishbosheth said it took her from her husband, from Paltiel, the son of Laish. Then her husband went along with her, then her husband went along with her to Bahurim, weeping behind her. So Abner said to him, "Go return," and he returned. Which that's just it's you got to feel for the guy, but it is also kind of sad at the same time. So here you have this man who, for a number of years, this has been his wife. They might even have children. And now the military is just showing up and ripping her from him. He can do nothing to stop it. Once again, who's going to stand up to Abner? Abner is a mighty warrior. It's going to take a mighty warrior to stand up. And this Paltiel apparently is not one. And he's just weeping along, crying along as she's being brought forth out of that area. And Abner go, return, probably with a lot more of a threat than that. Go return while you still have a head, while you still have a life. Return while you still have the capability of returning. Now Abner had communicated with the elders of Israel, saying, "In time past you were seeking for David to be king over you. Now then do it. For the Lord has spoken of David, saying, by the hand of my servant David, I will save my people Israel from the hand of the Philistines and of the hand of all their enemies." And Abner also spoke in the hearing of Benjamin. Then Abner also went to speak in the hearing of David in Hebron all that seemed good to Israel and the whole house of Benjamin. So Abner, coming forth, communicates with the whole elders of all the tribes of Israel, calling out to all these people. And it's a significant thing that it comes from Abner, because these people were loyal to Saul. When Saul dies, David becomes king of only Judah. Then this long war begins. And it's not just, it almost takes on a different shape than David winning the war outright and then almost subjugating them back into Israel. But it's coming from Abner himself, that he is the general fighting against David. And now he's saying, it's time to put all this past us. In times past, you wanted David to be king. Now you have that chance. You have that opportunity for David to be your king. You have that opportunity to be reunited as one nation again. One nation, God's people ruled under one king that we were all looking for. This king who will lead us to victory. That was the original reason why the Israelites wanted a king, an earthly king to begin with, was that so that they could have victory as the other nations did. And Abner's also speaking this in the hearing of Benjamin, telling it to that tribe, the tribe of Saul, the tribe of Ishbosheth, saying it's time to leave Ishbosheth behind and join with the house of David. He now should be your rightful king. And in a way, it brings so much more power to those words coming from this man who was resistant to David, this man who served Saul, playing the peacemaker, so to speak, and saying, now it is time to come back to being one united body, to not be broken up, but to be one united body under God, because the Lord has spoken it. That this is the best thing for the nation and for everyone. It could have come from David, but it probably was best that it came from somebody that they respected and followed in Abner. So Abner and 20 men with him came to David at Hebron, and David made a feast for Abner and the men who were with him. Wait, did I finish it off? And Abner also spoke in the hearing of Benjamin. Then Abner also went to speak in the hearing of David in Hebron, and all seemed good to Israel and the whole house of Benjamin. I think I just talked about it, but didn't actually read that portion of the scripture. So Abner and 20 men with him came to David at Hebron, and David made a feast for Abner and the men who were with him. Then Abner said to David, I will arise and go and gather all Israel to my lord the king, that they may make a covenant with you, and that you may reign over all of your heart's desires. So David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. So Abner's saying, okay, I proclaimed this to all the elders. Now I'm going to leave. I'm going to gather them up, and they're now going to come forth and show their loyalty to you. They're going to present yourself, is the way this reads to me. That I'm going to bring the people to present themselves before you and make peace with you. So that way this long war will be over. Brethren versus brethren will end. And Israel will know peace inside its own borders again. So that way they can deal with the enemies outside. At that moment, the servants of David, Joab, came from a raid and brought much spoil with them. But Abner was not with David in Hebron, for he had sent him away, and he had gone in peace. So now Abner's leaving, and you have these raiders coming back, bringing all the spoil, probably from Philistine lands, the Amalekite lands. They're bringing all the spoil back in. And Abner's not there now. But word gets to it. David sent him away in peace, but word gets to Joab. When Joab and all the troops that were with him had come, they told Joab, saying, Abner, the son of Ner, came to the king, and he sent him away, and he is gone in peace. So the word gets to Joab. Abner was here. They're going to make peace. He's come and he's gone peacefully. There's been no war. Then Joab came to the king and said, what have you done? Look, Abner came to you. Why is it that you sent him away and he is already gone? Surely you realize that Abner, the son of Ner, came to deceive you, to know you're going in and you're coming out, to know all that you are doing. So he's saying he's deceiving you. He came in to spy out your region, to spy out our military's capabilities, to spy out your fortress, so to speak. He came in to spy these things out so he can bring you defeat. But what a way to speak to your king. What have you done? Have you not realized what you did? As if Joab is the one in charge. And when Joab had gone from David's presence, he sent messengers after Abner, who had brought him back from the well of Sirah. But David did not know it. Now when Abner had returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside in the gate to speak with him privately. So Joab back sends messengers out. He's not happy. So behind David's back, he sends messengers out. He sends runners out. Go catch up to Abner. Bring him back. Tell him to bring back. They're out by this well, probably where they're watering their mounts and everything. Bring him back. David doesn't know. Abner probably thinks he's coming back to meet with David. So when he reaches Hebron, Joab brings him aside. The gate is where they would normally, inside the gate, brought him inside the city, speak with him privately, as if it's some kind of official meeting, because the gate is where they would do a lot of official stuff. Judging, that's where they would deal with the civil disputes. So he brings him in to speak to him privately. And to finish out verse 27, and there stabbed him in the stomach, so that he died for the blood of Asahel his brother. So Joab, going behind the back of David, assassinates Abner, who had left in peace from the king. Joab, going against his uncle's wishes, going against his king's wishes, to take things into his own hands and avenge his brother, a brother who caused his own downfall, as much as Joab himself did, because, as I mentioned, that battle never should have taken place. It was unnecessary in the grand scheme of things. Afterward, when David heard it, he said, "My kingdom and I are guiltless before the Lord forever for the blood of Abner the son of Ner. Let it rest on the head of Joab and all his father's house, and let there never fail to be in the house of Joab one who has a discharge or is a leper, who leans on the staff or falls by the sword, or who lacks bread." So Joab and Abishai, his brother, killed Abner because he had killed their brother Asahel at Gibeon in the battle. So David saying, no, this is not on us, not on my kingdom, not on my household, not on me, not on my children. This wicked deed rests solely on the head of Joab, on his father's house, and on everything that comes from them. They acted deceitfully. David is out here trying to bring peace to the land, and Abner is out here trying to take revenge for a brother that died in mutual combat. Not somebody who was just murdered out of the blue, but somebody who came to kill Abner, and Abner defended himself against him. Abner's fault, Abner's mistake, was believing that Joab had let this rest in the way David had. Abner even said to Asahel, as he was chasing after him, "If I strike you down, how can I face Joab, your brother?" In Abner's mind, he's thinking, how can I face another mighty warrior, knowing I slew his younger brother who was now nowhere near at the level of skill and power and probably just skill in battle that we are. But his mistake was thinking that Joab had turned the page the way David had. David is seeking unity because he seeks the heart of God, and God wants his people to be united. Joab wants solely revenge and power. Joab seeks after the flesh, not after the spirit. And Joab will continue to do wickedness. That is what he does. He has no concern about other than what gets him further in life from a physical and materialistic standpoint. What brings him more power is all that matters to him. Then David said to Joab and all the people who were with him, "Tear your clothes, gird yourselves with sackcloth, and mourn for Abner." And King David followed the coffin. So they buried Abner in Hebron, and the king lifted up his voice and wept at the grave of Abner, and all the people wept. So it's going to have to be interesting. The man you murdered, and now you're being told you have to go weep and mourn this man. And going further on to the wickedness of Joab and Abishai, and how corrupt they are and how they seek after the flesh. Did they do these things? They clearly are not mourning Abner. They slaughtered him. They couldn't care any less if they tried. But are they now going to go through the motions of pretending to mourn someone they murdered and murdered gleefully out of revenge? Are they going to go through the motions as if they actually care? How perverse it is to go through the motions of something without a heart for the thing you're going through. How crazy that can be. How odd that is. That level of contempt for the ways and of your people and of your king and ultimately of your God. How perverse it is for us to show up at church driving in embittered, driving in losing our patience with people, driving in and then taking communion as if we had just been perfectly following Christ that whole day. As if we had walked out our faith as a light and as salt. How perverse it is to not have repented for our ways before taking that. How perverse it is to show up to Sunday service staring at your phone, drawing in a notebook, mind completely oblivious to what's being said and what's being taught and what's trying to be communicated to you by the Holy Spirit speaking through your pastor, through the work and the research and the toil and labor they put in to bringing you that message. How perverse it is to go through the motions of faith, the motions of our religion, the motions of our relationship. How perverse it would have been for Joab and his brother to actually tear his clothes and gird himself in sackcloth and mourn for a man he just murdered. Because his heart's not in that. And with his heart not being in it, ultimately the sentiment is completely empty and devoid of any true meaning. And the king sang a lament over Abner and said, "Should Abner die as a fool dies? Your hands were not bound, nor your feet put into fetters. As a man falls before wicked men, so you fell." Then all the people wept over him again. Should he have died the death of a common fool? He wasn't a criminal. He wasn't brought in bound and chained to be put to death as some kind of treasonous traitor. He was welcomed in, but he fell before a wicked man who took advantage of him. Slain like a dog in the street. Slain as if by some cutthroat trying to steal his coin purse. David saying Abner deserved so much more than that, but got far less, even though he was in the land under a truce of peace. And when all the people came to persuade David to eat food while it was still day, David took an oath, saying, "God do so to me, and more also if I taste bread or anything else till the sun goes down." Now all the people took note of it, and it pleased them, since whatever the king did pleased all the people. For all the people in all Israel understood that day that it had not been the king's intent to kill Abner the son of Ner. Which this is important. David takes an oath to fast. Now all the people took note of it. It's not like the entire nation is within eye line or earshot of David. It's that the other tribes of Israel, those representing the other tribes of Israel, those other people who would come with Abner, all these people who are mourning, they see that David didn't do this deceitfully. He didn't bring Abner to him to slay him. He truly brought him for peace. And that he was slain wickedly, but that the heart of their new king wasn't for this violence. And so it pleased them because it showed that he truly did desire the peace that Abner told them David desired. Then the king said to his servants, "Do you not know that a prince and a great man has fallen this day in Israel?" So that's what he says about a man who has warred against him for so long, that he was a prince and a great man. A mighty man of valor has fallen. Didn't always fight with David. Often fought against him. But he was no less honorable and great in what he had done before the previous king and honored the people of the land. And I am weak today, though anointed king, and these men, the sons of Zeruiah, are too harsh for me. The Lord shall repay the evildoer according to his wickedness. Said, I'm weak. I might be the anointed king, but I'm broken over what happened because these two sons of Zeruiah, they're too harsh. This is not what was meant for my kingdom. But the Lord will repay the evildoer according to his wickedness. I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to take it away from them. But the Lord will be the judge of them, and he will repay them the wickedness that they have brought forth in this time where we're trying to gather peace. The Lord will make that decision, because ultimately the decisions are always the Lord's. The Lord is the ultimate arbiter of any judgment on this planet, any judgment of his entire creation. He is the ultimate arbiter. And David is reaffirming and recognizing that. So that way the people know that his peace through his mouth, spoken in his bond, is truth. And that anything else will be handled by the Lord himself. And that says something to a people who trusted witnesses, who trusted the word of people, who trusted the word of the king, because his bond was to be unbreakable. As ours is today, as Jesus said, don't make oaths. Just let your yes be yes and your no be no. But there are times when they are necessary. This is one of them. And David makes peace, brings an end to the war, brings the people together in a time of tragedy, and shows himself to be the true king of Israel, that anointed king that they have been looking for since Samuel first was told that they needed a man king. The heart of David to God and the willingness he has to walk out his path and trust in judgment, to fully embody the statement of to be still and know I am God, to just sit and allow God to do the works and the judging around you. Well, that's where we shall end it for today. I hope this was fruitful for you. I hope to see you back again next time. But until then, be blessed.